I'm Becky, I am 29 and I'm from St Anne's. I engaged with the midwifery services during the birth of my daughter. I visited the hospital originally for a midwifery-led unit tour. When I actually went into labour, I came down to the hospital and experienced the midwifery-led unit. I then went on to the midwifery ward. The midwife that I eventually ended up engaging with in terms of support and care throughout labour was somebody that wasn't very personal. I don't think she even knew my name. Having visited the midwifery-led unit on the tour, I had expectations and I was led to believe that it was going to be much more of a home from home environment. We were never shown around, we were never told where we could make a drink, we were never shown how we could dim lights, where we could put music on, and in hindsight it's easy to see that I felt like an imposter. It was a cold environment, it wasn't supportive. The midwife left me alone for quite a long time, regularly, and when she did return back there were no words of encouragement. I'd been in labour for a long time, and it was at that point, after being in what I consider to be active labour for nearly 24 hours, that I asked for an epidural. It's easy to see now that if I'd have had some encouragement and some support, and I was in an environment that I felt like I owned and I had control of, just to know that it was okay to walk around that room and it was okay to be in the pool or out the pool. It was like I had to ask permission. And when I did want to have a conversation with her about what options were available to me, she wasn't there. And when I finally did ask for an epidural, the response was, okay, I'll go and sort it out, and she left the room, and that was that. It was at no point a conversation, it was at no point these are your options, we could offer you this while you're still in the MLU. I made it really clear that I wanted a water birth, and whilst I know that you're not always going to get what you're looking for in labour, at that point there was no medical reason to have an epidural. There was no reason other than tiredness and being at the end of my tether. Thankfully, that midwife went off shift just as I was about to start pushing, and if I'd have had a good experience with her, I think I would have been really upset, because obviously that's quite a critical moment in your labour journey. But I was so pleased that the new midwife came on. I think she was called Monique, because she did have those people skills and she did encourage me. And honestly, if she'd have been with me a few hours earlier, I really don't believe I would have been in there, which is disappointing. It's so upsetting. I then went on to deliver my baby, and I had a 3rd degree perineal tear. Again, you don't know if that would have happened anyway, but the chances of that happen double when you have an epidural. And again, it's just about decision making. It's something that I'm still struggling with. I have a rectocele, and I have issues with muscle function in my anal rectal canal, that I'm now having to go to Manchester regularly for biofeedback treatment, and that is a result of that tear. So it's just about thinking about long-term effects, and I'm not saying that it's definitely a consequence of the epidural, but it could be, and it's just about remembering that for me. I then went into theatre as soon as I delivered, because the tear needed some surgical attention. I think I was parted from my baby for about 2 hours, an hour and a half to 2 hours, in which time my baby, she's called Josephine, she went to her dad for skin-to-skin care, and that was a really good thing, and I was really pleased that that happened. My experience of the actual theatre setup, I'd had an epidural and I needed an additional spinal block, I think that's what it's called. So I was conscious, but I'd been through 2-3 days of hell. It was an absolute battle. So my eyes were closed, and it probably looked like I was asleep during the surgery, but I wasn't, and I was fully aware of everything that was going on. and the staff around me were really good at keeping me informed about what was happening. There were a couple of dramas, there were a couple of times where my levels weren't right, or it was taking a lot longer than they thought it should have done. And while I felt their panic at times, which panicked me, they did continue to reassure me, even though it probably looked like I wasn't conscious. They did take the time and attention to do that, so that was a really good thing. However, the fact that a dad can't stay overnight after you've gone through the trauma that I had when I was still paralysed from the waist down and I couldn't pick up my own baby, that's a shame, and for me it's a tragedy.